Okay. Hey, Kara.
Hey.
The Tracy and Tag show. Loving it. Tag and Tracy.
Yes. TNT.
Oh, what a. Okay, so how are you feeling? Because I know we did some energy work a couple days ago, and you look like you rested a little bit last night.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I just, I had 2 vivid dreams last night after you did that session with me. And yesterday I was just feeling off completely. And it was gloomy outside. I was still kind of locked in my emotions from Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday I was going through it,
Mm-hmm.
with the disappearance of my son, and then, the disconnect that I have with my family. I mean, I was going through it, and it doesn't happen as often as it was, but yet I had to sit in that energy and just go through it,
Yeah.
So after we did the energy work and discovered some blockages that I was experiencing, I had 2 vivid dreams last night. And one of those dreams, it had to do with contracts. And in the dream, the contract, well, before I move on, the other portion of that dream had to do with my daughter's big announcement, I know, right? So going back to the first part of the dream about the contract was with a associate that I made a huge mistake, even though it was a working relationship for 8 years. And she worked under my umbrella when I had the studio. And she ended up getting a new partner, which, I had the vision about him. And when she asked me what I thought, I gave her the honest truth of my vision. And I told her that she needed to keep it professional,
And this is all in the dream?
Well, leading up to the dream.
Okay.
Because a little backstory on her in that situation.
Gotcha.
Uh-huh. So my studio had flooded, and it was right before the city got notice that we could open up fully functional after COVID. So, you had that whole 18 months? Something like that.
I don't even know.
It just seemed forever.
It was a blob of time.
Yes. And, my line of work, you have to be in physical contact with each other. And so it's a matter of, you can't stay 6 feet apart, because it's
and it was a
partner
day.
dancing.
I did home care nursing at the time, and it was a daily shifting of what a process, right? So like, okay, we're going to do this. Okay, no, we're retracting this. I remember. I mean, it was every day. It was and I think even after COVID now, I feel like maybe that put something in the human consciousness or psyche that things are shifting rather abruptly and quickly on a daily basis ever since then.
Yeah. It's been a hard pivot. Growth, there's sudden change. I mean, there's progress for change versus a hard pivot. I mean, it's draining. Leading up to the dream last night, she was in it, trying to get me to sign a new contract.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I had, when the studio flooded, of course, I had about 7 instructors under me. When COVID happened, I had lost all my contracts,
Oh, wow.
because it was
That's
with the,
huge.
yeah, it's huge. You know, most of it has to do with one-on-one training and rehearsing. And, you know, I was also teaching ballroom in the school district as an elective. So all that went away. And I was also coaching other, it was a high school in Frisco. They had an entrepreneur class for students that wanted to go into their own business, which I think is fantastic to add that elective in high school so they could see what real entrepreneur is, not just the glam part of it.
Those type of
and
classes are amazing. I mean, like real life classes. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, the home economic classes that they took out of school. I mean, you gotta learn how to feed yourself, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So and mend things and shop and, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, make a long, right. Yeah. Real life stuff. Make a long story short, I had to find another facility and open, and there was all kind of headaches and delays and sabotage and all this stuff going on. And so when I had found another facility to reopen, they couldn't fit us all in one unit. It was in a strip mall, so they had us in two separate suites. And let me tell you, they gave me such the runaround. I was on the top floor and the bottom floor, and then just the top, and then just the bottom. It was just one big headache after another. And so I had signed the contract with them being a basically a guarantee, a guarantor, simply because I did not want to be stuck with this large overhead alone this time. And she wanted to open up her own studio anyway. And I'm like, okay, what better way? Had we not had this working relationship for the past 8 years, I would have never done that. But because I also helped coach her and mentor her on her own book of business, I felt that we had a great working relationship. So her and her partner got together, and her new partner, well, he didn't know me, you know. And
so this all has to do with the dream. This all has to do with the contracts in the dream, because I feel like I feel like it might be getting a little off topic of kind of what our original plan is, which is the holistic component of where we are now, which is the private membership associations, and kind of where.
So just say, shut up, Tag. You're just going around the barn.
Well, I'm trying to figure out
down to the lake.
I don't want to. Okay, so and this is kind of what I was trying to figure out this morning, even for me, like how much do I want to focus on the problem and how much do I want to focus on the solution? And this is really good, actually, right? And so one of the things that I do is I'm a dream weaver, and so what I'm interested, I'm waiting for you to get to the dream so that we can
get to the dream.
So we can kind of decipher like why that was still sitting in your body, and on a deeper meaning. I mean, for me, even like her name, his name, they have a specific vibration and energy in your life, maybe even for lifetimes, right? And so like it would be interesting to know what the origin of their names are, where that comes from, and how that has played in your life or lives cycles for a really long time. And so so it was, I guess the component where I'm curious about is, did it break? Did you guys break away and there was still some there was maybe some resentment that was built from that,
Oh
or
yeah.
okay.
There was a lot of resentment
Okay,
because
so there
he
was
didn't know me,
okay.
but she did.
Yeah,
With
okay.
him not knowing me and my work ethic and how I contribute to the community, his insecurity showed up early on in that work dynamic.
And
And
so
so,
this is very interesting, Tech, because okay, so think about on a grander scale here, and on a world view scale. And I don't even want to say world view because ultimately we're in this part of the world, which is the United States, right? And so the views that we have and the cultures that we have, it's they call it a melting pot, right? Might differ from a lot of the other places in the world, but it goes back to that one story. And also how the mother energy, the father energy, and the child energy all have been programmed into what I would like to point out in human life, the we'll call it religion slash spirituality, and then also practical, medical, scientific. So scientific, spirituality. And I heard once if any one individual can blend the two and take their own inner spirituality and their own inner scientific thought patterns and vibrations within themselves, and they can merge and blend those and have those work together, that's where ultimately heaven and earth meet, or you find the balance. And so we both know that it's way bigger than just me and way bigger than just you, but it is the feminine and the masculine and how it has been presented in our life in America. And so I don't want to dive too much into our personal stories because we're going to leave that for the private realm. But we have some we'll say masculine.
well, I think it's a power of influence, and I don't think people realize that the power of influence is a real power. I mean, she disregarded everything that had happened prior to this current situation of leading up to the dream. So,
well, would you say that you have, and this is what I see, and even in my own recent stories that have come up that I have had to look at, which is you have the two women or multiple women, and there's all this underlining sense of betrayal. Right?
yeah.
And then there is the masculine energy that is kind of, I don't want to say puppeting, but I want to say is the influence, like you said,
Right.
that creates the turbulence so that remembrance or fear or wound can surface. And so, yeah.
So in this situation, my role, I knew what my role and responsibility was. I was the mother. It was my brand, my space.
Okay, gotcha.
I took ownership of that. It was my influence that helped build the scene of the community, And so the betrayal wasn't really a betrayal. It was very, looking at the situation now, you can see the ignorance of the child in this situation. because a child would not understand the importance of community, because a child is self-serving. A child is self-absorbed. It wants what it wants when it wants. It doesn't see the development. You see what I'm saying?
I do. So the component that I have come to realize is, and I love this component. It's if I'm not the problem, there is no solution. And so ultimately, even if it is a childlike essence that comes into my awareness, and I believe that this is why we have children anywhere, like in life, why we procreate. It is to make us better people, right? And so,
Right.
or have us look at how we are reflecting ourselves into, what the student-teacher relationship.
Yes. And inserting boundaries and reward versus.
So yes, I do
punishment.
understand what you're saying with the child and how they are reflecting that back to you. Just kind of, I want, and what can I get out of this and all that stuff. And the okay. So the piece that I will bring in next is that is the piece that brings up the disturbance in your body, so that ultimately, or my body, or whoever's body it is who is playing the parent role or teacher role, that needs to say, this has nothing to do with her or him. This has to do with what is inside of me. And
exactly.
I'm getting disturbed at something in my external world. Why is this affecting me? Right. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And so in the dream, she wanted me to go into another contract, wanting me to be responsible so she wouldn't have to, because she figured out on her own, when I took my energy back, losing the time and the resources and what all she took from that situation. I said, no more.
Okay, I'm curious. Okay, so this is okay. So I love dreams. I love dreams. Okay. So curious, in the dream, what was their emotions? What was your like, where were you? Were you in like a dance studio? Were you in the void? Do you remember any of that? Was it just like a telepathic like feeling? Curious.
It was in a white room, pure white. It had a window. It had a desk. The contract, which the desk was white. The contract, the piece of paper, it was white and black, and the pen was black.
Wow. That's so detailed. I love it. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all about balance right now. Okay. And you're moving through, you're and another thing with dreams is, because I worked with a lot of people's trauma, and when we have dream nightmares, like serious, like real deal nightmares where it is affecting your waking life, like you can't eat or sleep because this is an issue. Everything has a deeper meaning, and a lot of times, like I used to have dreams that I either killed somebody and I was running for my life, or I was helping somebody else cover up a murder.
Oh, wow.
By act, right? And so, but there's a whole deeper meaning of the emotion, and it has to do with like a letting go process, and it actually parallels into the spiritual and the scientific. We're going back to that, which is great, right? So like there is some scientific analysis here that can figure out how to get that image of whatever, whether it's your dream of the black and white showing up where it did, and in the room that you had in the window and all of that stuff. I mean, you can ultimately, you know, do a little research online. Why was there a window in my dream? What does that mean? Why was there a you know, black and white and kind of all the detail, especially the pen. Was it a specific color, the pen, did you say?
It was a black pen, and you know that pen was a fountain pen. And you know, I felt as though the ink looked a little red versus black. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm about to sign a contract with blood.
Yeah, root chakra too. Root chakra. Security, right?
And so the more I said no,
wait.
the escalated the conversation became to, you know, she was having a full-blown crisis of why I needed to re-sign this contract, go into, or not re-sign, but go into a contract with her. And I was thinking, well, you know, I didn't give her, it was under contract about $20,000 that she never repaid. So basically she stole it, you know.
I'm telling you, I love just saying the right word, right? There's like an old Japanese saying that says, you know, like call it by its right name. Call it by its right name. And if it's stealing, it's stealing. It's not. And the thing is that we are all human. We make these, this is the shadow, right? If somebody steals, cheats, or lies, let's just say that so that ultimately we can get to the truth, and then we can say, where's the forgiveness in that?
Yeah, exactly.
And, like you're saying, what do I need to say no to? What is not good for me or for you? Where are the boundaries here? Because this is old energy. We shouldn't be, shouldn't be in it anymore.
Yes. So I woke up from this dream and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, well, that answers one question. I see the masquerade in the situation. What she's presenting is not truth. It's a facade, and what's really underneath of it all screams on her face. This is why her face is twisted. You know, there's a reason why that is. And so not for judgment or shade or anything like that. I don't care. But these are symbols that at the time I overlooked, because as the mother of the situation, I'm rooting for her success.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, I want to see my children win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
think sometimes though, and I'm not sure, so touch on this. When the mother, and this is maybe where ultimately I feel like my old self and being in the mainstream, and then my new self being in going into the private realm and really holding these components as sacred, is that there's these old stories that the mother is supposed to put other people and their children and whatever, the son, daughter, father, before her own needs. And I feel like that should never be true for any
correct
person or any role in the story, whether it be the father, the son, daughter, or the mother, right? Everybody needs to put their mask on first before they.
Right, exactly.
And so do you feel like there was a little old story in being the protector, and then maybe that even that was like threw it off balance in the way where it allowed her to be not imbalanced as well in your auric field, in your presence?
Great question. And I can say with confidence, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
You
I didn't do,
sacrificed yourself a little bit too, because you were, we've all been taught to sacrifice
yeah,
ourselves as the
yes,
mother. Okay.
yes.
Maybe even as the son, and maybe even as the father. Maybe all of us, we're all like kind of in this place where we're all like supposed to sacrifice components of ourselves for the good of. At this point, I'm thinking something that I don't know what it is anymore.
Mhm.
And maybe never did know what it is. And maybe it has to do with the deeper power and money thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That experience when I walked away from that situation, um, I really had to redefine sacrifice and
Mm,
what it meant to me, because it was so devastating. I
mm,
had, I'm just like, wow, you know, it, it just blew my mind. So not only did I have to redefine sacrifice, but I had to also redefine time and what that meant to me. And I had to redefine money and what that meant to me,
mm.
you know?
Good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your inner values and your body.
Uh-huh.
I
Yes.
think that's a big thing. Like, okay, so this is what I was thinking this morning.
Okay.
Okay, so what came to my mind this morning was where heaven and earth meet, right? So like we talk about this, it's called, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, Shambhala. Have you heard of Shambhala?
No, I have not.
Okay. You should get the book. There's a book called Shambhala. It talks about this. It talks about the component when you are able to bring in the heaven and the earth within you and find that middle space. They even call it like the inner earth too. There's like a mystical story where in the inner earth there's like a whole civilization of people who live in Shambhala, this lost world. Sometimes I want to be there, but anyway. So, but what we're calling, and this kind of where I break free from the mainstream stories and the medical avenue that I went, and the religious avenue that I went, or spiritual avenue that I went, which was trying to find community in these places, right? Community and in the hospitals that I worked in and the rehabs that I worked in, community in the churches that that I went to, and in the recovery community. And there was uh, uh what were we talking about?
Community.
No, I lost it, which was heaven and earth. Shambhala. Um, is where in those communities, and I don't even know in the medical so much. I think in the medical community and the scientific, we'll call it scientific community, it's not even talked about really. Like,
Yeah.
And maybe even so a little bit more, but there is limitations and boundaries there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can bring this in, but under regulations. You can bring that in, but under regulations. And then in the religious community, it's called hell. Earth is called hell.
Really, I thought that was Texas. No, I'm just kidding.
It's everywhere. And it was very interesting because I'm doing a little traveling recently. So in the South, it is really interesting because it is a different mindset. And I'm like, some of the terminology that I was being presented with when I drove to Florida just recently, I didn't even know how to respond. I needed to ask more questions because I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean by a good Christian? What does that mean? Right.
Right. What does that mean?
I mean, because what it means maybe to me is something different what it means to you. And so I am okay and this is the piece where I'm at right now, because I kind of call myself Hell's doula. Well, I do call myself Hell's doula, but only because I believe that earth and hell in the mainstream world actually is the same thing. And I feel like I didn't even realize that. I'm like, well, okay. So it would be okay if they didn't, if there wasn't so much negativity around what hell is. I guess that's
Right. So, right. I think it's more superstition than anything. It doesn't, on this holistic path, I've had to study many religions because it has been the foundation of the people that I have worked with in the past, and what drives them and what motivates them, because as in my previous profession, being a coach, it's my objective to have my clients thrive in any environment that they're in, because they don't have any control,
especially
over
earth. Earth
Yeah.
is like, it's important to understand the dark, murky swamps are filled with medicine.
Yes.
To heal
Oh my
us.
gosh. Yes. It sure is. I mean, and I don't mean to jump off topic, but that reminds me of a nephew that I have a ton of nephews. Well, he has eczema. He had eczema as a child. And so he was left in my care. I don't even like saying black sheep of the family. I consider myself a fucking unicorn. That's what I am. I come with my own sword to slice people up and put them in their place where they need to be. Okay. So anyway, I just spent a day with him in just playing in the mud near the creek.
Yes.
That was by my, complex. At that time I was single parent. And we played out there for hours in the dirt. And guess what started to happen?
His eczema started to clear up.
His eczema was starting to clear up.
Yeah.
Yes, his body needed the microorganisms that were in the dirt.
Yes,
in the mud,
and the transit of the ions too, because there's negative and positive ions, and everything has a vibration. And so especially when we're in the sympathetic state, our human body, all the time, or a lot, it really benefits us to bring in the more grounded, lower vibrations of the trees and the dirt and the rocks.
Yeah. So back on topic now.
Vice versa. and they benefit from our vibration, even, right? And that's the best thing about it, is that especially when we are have these imbalances and stuff, the earth is like, I'm here, like, let me help you,
right?
Because it must feed off of service to us as well. And so in order, right, because like for I believe, for me, that, and I'm gonna get, hold on one second, hold on, I want to turn this light off because it's driving me nuts. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Well, it's still a little, whatever. Anyways, I know where I was, but there was something.
You're talking about vibration.
Yeah. And I guess the piece that that I was going to get to was a lot of times we're always like, you know, forest bathing and doing all these things will help us, but ultimately we rarely talk about, um, uh, you know, what she receives from us being with her, or
Yes.
it, or I
Yes.
don't, you know, like all of it, the father, mother, son, daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind, body, and spirit.
She said, so like sometimes I'll talk to trees when I talk to trees, and I'll walk like if I'm walking downtown, and I'll say to the tree, there's a sister tree down there with like it has two things like this, and it's the cedar, and they're sisters. They've told me they're sisters, and they fight. They're like, I can't get away from her. And then some of the trees, one time I remember, I think it was the first time I remember like um, feeling, understanding that they are lonely. And so as I'm walking downtown, I said to one of the trees, I was like, what can I, you know, are you okay? What can I do for you? What are you, you know, what's going on with you? And the tree said to me, I'm lonely. No, everybody walks by me and nobody acknowledges that I'm here.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And a lot of us feels like that in our everyday lives, except for we're walking around. We're not,
Yeah.
paying
And I
attention to the
think
ground.
this is right. So, like, because this is kind of what I am being shown now is that the comparison of my world and your world previously to what we're doing now was left some of those components out enough to where I needed to turn a different way. And it sounds like you needed to turn a different way in order to listen to that deeper voice within, hold a truth, hold self sovereignty, and hold a sacredness in the healing journey, in the community journey, and in the self journey with whatever um, whatever faith that we hold. And that brings me to my next question is like, okay, so the whole word faith, let's just go there. Okay. So I was chatting up with ChatGPT, and we kind of were talking about faith-based organizations, because that's what I am and that's what you are. And so they gave me some dialogue around it, which included the word Christ. And for me, my teachings go back way before Christ. It does still hold that one story, which is the mother, the father, the child, the Trinity, right?
Yes.
But there were many mothers previous to Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and Jesus that held that same story. Buddha and Thoth, and there's probably more even before that. I don't know. And maybe there was another story even previous to that that wasn't that type of story, and I think maybe it was more matriarchal, but I think maybe it still had the same story.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the word faith. Why? So I asked ChatGPT why, when I put in when we start talking about faith-based organizations or faith in general, is there Christ? Why is there that there? And the answer was, good point. Like, faith. I can have faith as a shaman. I can have faith as a shaman and still love the story, still love Christ, and still love the mother, and still love the Christ consciousness, right? Because it's more than just a man. And the father energy and the mother energy and the creation story, which I'll go back to. Let's just see how things manifest in this real world, which the mother pushes a baby out of her vagina. I'm just saying.
It's a portal.
A portal. I love portals. Okay, so yeah, the word faith. What is that for you?
Well, it's funny that you should mention this because yesterday I had my meeting with Rob, and we spoke about, writing my bylaws and stuff. And, one of the things that I expressed during our conversation is that I can't go with the language of the system, simply because a lot of it doesn't make sense and it has double meaning. So he confirmed that that's the Abraham, so terminology, Abrahamic. Am I pronouncing this right?
I don't know, but okay, yeah.
Yes, of the construction of our society, basically.
Which ultimately, if you think about it, and I don't know, it's its own faith. And so we're just have created a faith that holds a different meaning. But there's many, many different ways you can use that word or place that word or
yeah,
I really know.
So I'll just say, matrix. Everybody understands that.
Okay.
Now, last night I was kind of going over my structure of my bylaws, and light bulb moment. I'm like, wow, everything is a matrix. It has a foundation. It has a beginning, has a middle, it has an end, and it also can be seen as either a box or a grid. So in my line of work, which kind of like jumps off into this other thing, but I'm gonna try to keep it short.
Okay, I like that because I'm gonna change box to container. Okay, yep. And or so like almost like it's a round earth or a flat earth. Got it. Okay.
So, I'm thinking, okay, well, all right. I have a matrix, and I can view it as incorporating it in the line of the systems that are currently collapsing and field trapped and boxed in with all kind of limitations. Can't move to the side, can't go above, can't go below. I'm just there. Or I can make it a grid. When you make it a grid, you have more room to develop that grid in the shapes that you want it to be. So even though it starts off in squares and it's multiple squares, but you can make lines within the square in order to get a circle, in order to get a point, in order to get any type of shape, geometric shape. So I started thinking on the line of a grid. I will not go within the matrix of a box.
I love it. I love that. I feel like the grid is in a container Um, it's
Yeah,
just
a
not,
resizable
it's just
container.
not the container that is already exists. It's a new container
It's a
that
new container.
that is allowed to be with the other container or
Yes.
within the other container, maybe even.
And one thing about containers is that you can make it stackable.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
can stack one on top of each other, or side by side, or in a
Yep.
straight line, or in a row. You know, the
And
sky
I'm a
is the limit.
container. I'm building a container too, and
Yeah.
protecting the sacred container. It is like it's like its own body. And that's, I think, right. So that's what I learned when I was developing the faith-based organization for myself, which is it's its own entity.
It's its own entity. Yes. So
Outside
I
of me.
can.
It's not, it is, I just honor it and hold it so that it can breathe and do what
It
it
can breathe. Yes.
Mhm.
So I started to list and outline my faith.
Okay. Love that.
Yes. And so I'm pouring energy. I'm pouring, my soul into this container
Mm-hmm.
to make this a larger bridge or grid. And so I realized that my philosophies aligned with nature, earth.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And so it was such a eye-opening experience of how we should look at our own lives, especially every day, because we only have this moment right now to work within this grid, this container, within this matrix, and what we fill it with, you know?
So love this segue, girl. Okay. So this brings me back to working in the hospital. And there was a gentleman in the hospital, and we were friends. And I started down the path of like learning Reiki because I had gotten sick, and I was getting sicker the more I leaned into the medical system more, like I had a surgery, and then I needed another surgery, and then I was on a med, and I needed another med, and all this stuff, right? And at one point I was on 80 of Prilosec a day for my heartburn, and I had psoriasis, and my skin was all screwed up, and my gut was just a mess. And so I started down the learning energy work, and and so he called me in the office we worked in the PACU, post anesthesia care unit. It was an awesome job. Love the job, right? But okay, I should say I love the job, but there were some limitations to this component, and so I went in, and he was a very religious man. He was like Angelo Saxton. I don't know
Okay.
what the word is, but it's like they have, very deeply steeped in a specific way of thinking. And so he called me in there, and he looked very worried and very like distraught. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Are you okay?" And he said he was worried about me, and that I was going down the path of evil and demons, and and that I was going to go to hell for what I was doing.
Did you say I'm already in hell? What are you talking about? Catch up.
No. So this is what came to me at that time. It was very interesting from my own inner connection to the divine. And so what I said to him was, okay, picture this. I'm not going to say his name, but picture this. So you are the spokesperson of your religion. And now I'm sitting at a table, and I have a spokesperson from every single religion at this round table, and they're all telling me that I need to come with them and I need to believe in theirs, right? And I was like, what? How do I choose which one to go to? And he said, well, of course, mine, right? And so, and so at that point, I was like, that's not okay. That's not good enough for me to, right, to choose that specific one, because I obviously have been to those type of churches and that type of way of thinking. And when we talk about heaven and hell, and we talk about hell in a negative way, and that we need to separate it and keep it in its place and put it in a in a chained up. And then relating that to Earth being the hell, it's just not aligned with me, And
Yeah.
so I said that to him, and then what happened next was he started to get a little more passionate, and I would say for me, it started to bring up fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? It started to bring it started to create fear for me, because he was telling me I was going to die and I was going to go to hell for what I was doing. And I had to put my foot down at that point and said, that's not okay to say that to me,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not nice. And it's not okay. And I don't, if you're going to continue with what you're saying right now, I'm just going to have to ask you to stop saying that,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not okay in my world. I don't, it's not okay for you to create fear for me. I create enough of my own.
Right. Yeah. I don't need
And
you to do anything.
so where and I'm trying to get back to where this stemmed from. We were talking about containers, and building our own container. And so for me, I believe, and I think for you too, and I think for anybody who is adventuring and embarking on this, journey of creating a faith-based organization, private membership association,
Mm-hmm.
is there. And this is another thing Spirit said to me and delivered this message: there's enough to go around, there's enough for everybody. And so if they can have that specific faith and sit in that faith, and I'm like, if that's what you want to believe, I'm okay with that, go ahead. Then I get to do what I get to have what I believe in too.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I completely agree with that. Absolutely. Because if you look at nature in general, everything is in abundance,
Yeah.
and it's like with I can't remember the number, over 1 billion people on the world, and in the world, yet there's not a shortage of air, and that's just for people. What about the trees? What about the bugs? What about the water? What about, there's all these living entities that rely on the same thing, and yet there is no shortage of it.
Right.
So it has to make sense for me, and making religion make sense for me with the restrictions of good and bad, heaven and earth, or heaven and hell. I'm just like, yeah, I can't get with that program, because you know what? There's in order for a hero to be created, there has to be a villain, but that villain is a hero in somebody else's eyes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I really just cannot say that it's good or bad.
It's interesting. So here's a big thing that I heard once as well, which is the good creates the bad and the bad creates the good. It's the whole yin and yang, right? Right.
Yeah.
Whole yin and yang thing. And so I'm just gonna say that the system itself is calling us to create these things so that it creates a balance and allows for people who cannot find, and I'm going back to this, it's great, full circle, who cannot find what they're looking for in what is already out there in the scientific world and in the spiritual world. And that is why we're here, girl.
That's why we're here. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why we're here. Yeah, it's a purpose. It's a calling. It's whatever title you want to put on it. But balance has to be restored.
Yeah,
it is so out of balance right now, and one extreme or the other is not good.
Yeah,
it's not healthy. So, yeah. Do we have time for the second dream? Or
I would say maybe, because it's already, we've been on for about an hour and 5 minutes. So I would say let's leave that for tomorrow.
Okay. We'll leave it for tomorrow.
And so, so I am, my website is up and just some small tweaks left, but themotherhouse.org. And you can go there and sign a private membership agreement and see what's inside and up and coming. And how about you, Tag?
Website is up, and I am currently working on my membership agreement. So, if you have any female problems, issues, concerns that you need to speak to someone about, I am available. Just go to the website, kissmyrt.com, and book a call, and we'll take it from there. See how I can help you. Yes.
Yay. Love this. All right. The end.
The end.
Oh, sheesh. Loving this. Loving life. I'm sending you this.